Welcome back to episode 20 of Not Another Moto Pod, hosted by Sam Fury. Today we're going to preview the 450 motocross class for the 2025 outdoor season. We'll talk about some guys that are hurt but might pop in later in the year, who we think can win races this season, and of course who will be our 2025 champion. As always, I'll try to keep these relatively short, concise, and I'll be back later this week with a 250 preview as well, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. But for now, let's get right into the 450s. As I mentioned in the intro, we'll talk about some guys here. That's what I'm going to call the main players here in this outdoor season for the 450 class. Obviously, we're going to start, there's quite a list. A lot of these guys are factory guys or names that we've heard for quite a while, or new guys popping into the class that we think can contend. But obviously, let's start with guys who we think can be winners on the season. And who else would we start with but Jet Lawrence? I think everyone who's listening to this pod knows how I feel about Jet Lawrence. I feel that he could be one of the greats, possibly the greatest, if he does avoid injury, which has bit him in the last two seasons, of course. But honestly, if I'm picking a guy this year to win the majority of the races, just to be around, just to look good, it's Jet Lawrence. Despite his ACL injury, it looks like he's come back strong. We do think maybe it may take him a while to kind of get up to speed, perhaps. But with the way that Jet rides and being someone who's had an ACL injury myself in the past, I don't think that this will affect him maybe as much as many people think. Again, fitness could be an issue, perhaps. The training that he's probably been doing is probably not going to help him make these 30-minute plus two motos. But honestly, it's never been an issue in the past with Jet or most of these guys, truthfully, obviously any of these elite guys. So look to see Jet back at the top and just back to form. Obviously, if he's not winning right away, we do expect that later in the season. I do expect some incredible battles between Jet, Eli, and Chase that we unfortunately have not really gotten so far between the three of these guys who the guys that we do consider the elite guys. This could be the year that we get it. And hopefully while they're all, Jet's coming into his prime, Chase is obviously in his prime at the moment. Eli is on his way out of his prime, but still has a lot of fire. So we're really hoping to see some of those battles. Speaking of Eli, of course, another guy who I think could be a winner this season and obviously could be a championship player. Eli Tomac, obviously, every time we come to the outdoor season, he is a threat to win at any racetrack at any time. Eli is one of the toughest competitors that we've ever seen. He's just a dog outdoors. I mean, the term dog was invented for someone like Eli Tomac, the way that he rides and, what he's shown throughout his career as an outdoor rider. So really look for Eli to bounce back. It does seem that he does have a bit of issue, maybe more so pain than expected with that broken leg that he's been fighting through, but I don't expect that to be an issue for long. Again, maybe like Jet coming into this season a bit behind where we thought he would be, could possibly kind of push him back a bit, but look to see maybe later in the season once Eli gets back to full strength and really can contend for race wins and battle with these guys. I really think it's going to be an awesome thing to see kind of the older generation, really face off against the new generation. Something like we saw with Eli and Chase, of course, during the 2022 season when it was just an all-out battle royale all season. Obviously, Eli came out on top, but that was one of the great all-time championship battles. Again, speaking of Chase, let's go to Chase. Chase is obviously the proven guy, the returning champion. He's running the number one. I saw a picture of it today. He's got the Vented number one plate with the 4 engraved in it. It looks awesome. It looks sick. He is obviously going to be coming in with some fire after losing the Supercross championship the way that he did, but finishing the season on such a high, winning 4 of the last 5 races, barely missing out on the Supercross championship. I think Chase comes in with a lot of fire. Possibly the one thing that worries me about Chase, obviously, looking at this list of folks, Chase is one of the guys coming in probably with the most head of steam. But what we have been hearing lately in interviews with Lewis Phillips, that he has said that he's found something on the bike. It worries me a bit because of how good he was last outdoor season and how good he finished off that season. It worries me that he is still tinkering with the bike and thinks things are getting better. We hear this going into every off season, that the bike could be better. We're going to fix something instead of just letting things lie. I hope it actually has gotten better and it's not a thing where, it's better at the test track, but when we get to the real races, he's suddenly fighting something. That's something that really concerns me. Outside of that, Chase should be our clear-cut favorite for the first couple weeks, just based off, finishing out the last season, finishing out Supercross. He's the only one of these four guys that I've got in my winners list here. Obviously, Prado is going to be added to this list with the rest of these guys. Chase Sexton is just he's got to be riding that high. He has to be one of these guys who comes out early, and to win this championship, I really think he needs to go out and kind of make a statement these first couple weeks. We know the stigma that surrounds Chase Sexton, especially when Jet's on the track, is that Chase kind of can't get it done when Jet's out there. Proven kind of the last couple years when they've raced head-to-head. Jet's perfect season, of course, Chase was his main competitor there when he was available to race. Obviously pushed Jet to new levels, which was unbelievable to watch. We've obviously seen Chase go head-to-head with Eli. Eli won that battle as well. Chase did, of course, win the battle with Hunter Lawrence. Not quite on the level of Jet Lawrence, of course, but still a fierce competitor. So it's not that Chase can't win, and I love Chase Sexton, so it's not even a thing coming out of my mouth. It's just a thing that we've kind of seen it when Jet's on track. Even after Jet got hurt last year, majority of the time Jet ends up winning. Obviously, of course, when Jet was hurt last year and was, of course, on the track for Chase's 40th to 1st battle. It's not that Chase can't beat him. Just more often than not, it has turned out in Jet's favor. So really hope to kind of see that broken in these first few weeks and kind of start off on a strong foot for Chase Sexton. As I just, of course, briefly went over, Jorge Prado has to be my fourth guy. I truthfully think my four winners in this class, if I had to stamp it today, would be Jet, Eli, Chase, and Jorge Prado. I think Prado might be slow early in the season, but I think he's proven himself, and I think he's a great starter, and I think he's going to find a way to win one of these things. I don't know that he all-out goes and battles Jet, Eli, and Chase and just beats them all one day. But I think based on his starts, just something goes wrong for somebody. Somebody has a bad day. That Prado can go out there and beat these guys. In that case, again, I don't think he has the all-out speed necessarily of these three guys ahead of him, but I do think Prado can be one of the guys, can be a race winner. I do think he's going to be incredibly consistent this year between the 3 to 5 range, but I do think he could sneak in a win. And I think that would be awesome to see. Jorge Prado has really come over and attempted to add to this class. Unfortunately, got hurt in Supercross, but obviously outdoors is his bread and butter. It's really where we look to see the best out of Jorge Prado. In my next list, I've got the next list of guys who I think could possibly win, but are not going to be guys that I would stamp for a win this year. We got 4 guys here. I got J. Coop, AP, Hunter, and Cooper Webb. Let's start with J. Coop. He ended the season so strong, the Supercross season, of course. He ended last motocross season pretty strong with a couple podiums during that season. Obviously, there was a kind of a war of attrition out there, but J. Coop was kind of getting used to the 450. You could see him start to get his flow. He's looking incredibly confident right now, so I'm really excited to see where J. Coop can go. I think J. Coop's going to be another one of these consistent guys, similar to Prado, maybe not in the 3-5 range every week, but could definitely be 4 to 6, 4 to 7 range. J. Coop is definitely going to be a player in this championship. Again, in that range, and kind of mix it up with the guys. J. Coop does, of course, have some all-out speed that we've seen throughout his career. Again, just like Prado has a great starter. So I'll look to see big things from J. Coop, and like I said, maybe even a win. Definitely, I think he could definitely win a moto. I just overall, kind of, again, one of those guys who I think could win, but maybe not stamp it. Next, we'll go to Aaron Plessinger. AP, kind of like J. Coop, finished on a pretty good run there in the Supercross season. Obviously had a couple rough races in the last few weeks, in the elevation. But again, we know that AP didn't want anything to do with the Cooper Webb and Chase Sexton title hunt. So, things like that, maybe out of the nature of his racing per se, that kind of, mess with those results a bit. AP came on strong last year, led some laps. These last 2 years, actually, he's led a lot of laps and kind of shown himself to be one of the guys outdoors. So I'd be interested to see if AP could get his first moto win this year and possibly even an overall. Next on that list, Hunter Lawrence. Hunter Lawrence was Mr. Consistency last season. Of course, lost the title to Chase Sexton in a really hotly contested battle. But Hunter looked like the best guy some weekends and still never got that overall win. Plenty of moto wins last season, even when Jet was in. I believe he got 2 moto wins on the season. And just couldn't get it done. Of course, with the faster guys out there, was having some rough second motos for whatever reason. I think Hunter can get past that. We know from the end of outdoors last season that he looked better on the 2025. So I'd be really interested to see that. Of course, coming back from shoulder surgery of his own, I believe he tore his labrum. So we'll see how strong that is for a while. I don't think that's something that will hinder him long term. Especially going into the season, maybe these first couple weeks, kind of like I mentioned with Jet and Eli here. And Prado, of course, as well, coming back from a shoulder injury, I should mention. But I think Hunter can mix it up. I think Hunter's going to win some motos just like last year, and I think he can finally break through and maybe get one of those overalls. If he does, I think he's going to do it similar to the style that Prado would do it. I think he'd have to have some things fall right in his favor, but Hunter was a staple last year on the podium. I think he podiumed 9 or 10 of the 11 races outdoors. So, Hunter is definitely a guy who knows that he belongs up there and has the speed. I'll just be interested to see how he looks with his shoulder and coming back with some new players with, Jay Coop and his speed and the way that Prado coming back with Eli being back, guys that were not in this hunt last year. Next and last on this list, I do have Cooper Webb because he's Cooper Webb. We did hear in the press conference after he won the Supercross championship that Webb doesn't care about Supercross right now. I think that was a spur of the moment thing. Coming off of winning the title, you don't want to hear about what the next series is. You want to kind of live in it for a minute. And being so fresh off of it, when he was asked the question about how he would adapt to outdoors, he just didn't want to hear it. I thought it was hilarious, but we know how Webb feels about outdoors. This has happened before when he's won the Supercross championship. He's kind of phoned it in outdoors. It's not like he's fighting for a contract or anything. I do think Webb could maybe mix it up and get a win here or there, but I don't think it's going to happen, truthfully. But if anybody on this list is going to do it, it's going to be Cooper Webb. And I think we could probably stamp these 8 guys as the only guys who would get a win in this class, in my opinion. Obviously, these guys, Jay Coop, AP, Hunter, Webb, not going to be favorites to win, but again, could go win a moto and possibly find their way into an overall, but I just don't see it happening, if everything goes right for those top 4 guys. With that being said, I'll jump forward to some of the other guys that I think could be players in this class. Jason Anderson is back. We know he had a lengthy break at the end of the Supercross season, but we know that he's back. He's won races, won motos. And he looks to be fast. Anderson's kind of lost his edge there, maybe. So maybe not going to be, a guy who mixes it up too much. But look to see what Anderson does, and hope to see him get back to form. Love watching Anderson mix it up with the guys. Take no prisoners. Speaking of taking no prisoners, Justin Barsha, we know he's coming back. Obviously was not right either at the end of the Supercross season. Actually had a rough overall Supercross season, not what I expected. On the new Alden Baker program for him, I expected more. But definitely look to see him kind of in there and mixing things up. We know he's really good outdoors. Malcolm Stewart, a name that I really didn't think to put on this list. And then looking back at the way he finished last year, he really did have a good season outdoors after not riding for so long, in the outdoors class. Obviously, he had done Supercross for all those years, but Mookie was not a guy that you saw outdoors. I think Mookie's going to be fired up, just like Jay Coop and AP. He finished pretty good on a pretty good high during the end of the Supercross season. Obviously, we saw him get a win in Supercross. I think Mookie could be a guy who plays here, flirt with the top 10, maybe a top 5 guy if he has a good race. He did have a lot of top 10s at the end of last year, again, in a depleted field. This is a much deeper field than we had last year, of course, but I look to see Mookie kind of mix it up with the guys, and I'm interested to see what happens there. Joey Savacci, a guy who coming in from the 250 class into the 450s, really interested to see what Joey does outdoors. We know Joey is a really good outdoor rider. In my opinion, he's always been better outdoors than indoors. Really interested to see what he does aboard the Quad Lock Honda. It should be a really fun season to kind of see him mix it up. Kind of a guy who, under the radar at the end of the season, had a couple good finishes there, was mixing things up, and maybe he found something aboard that Honda that could be really interesting to watch. Cody Schock, I think that could be really fun. He's coming up just like Joey from the 250 class. Last year, of course, into the 450s this year. Could be really interested to see Cody Schock mix things up. Cody Schock had a really good year several years ago, again in a depleted field, and was mixing it up with these guys in the top 5, top 7 range. Cody Schock obviously in a much better place professionally aboard the Club MX Yamaha. And look to see what he can do there. I think I'd be really interested. I think he's going to have a lot of top 10s and maybe surprise some guys. I think he could probably sneak his way into the top 7 a couple times. I don't look for it often, but Cody Schock, definitely a guy who starts well and has ridden well throughout the season and kind of built confidence in that 250 Supercross class in these last 2 seasons. Again, switching back to the 450 for outdoors this year. Speaking of guys going from 250 to 450, RJ Hampshire, a guy who I almost put in that next category, but I know he's injured, and we know he's got that wrist injury, so he's not quite at 100%. If I had to put him in that next category, I probably would have snuck him in under Webb. I think RJ is a guy who's going to mix it up. I just don't see him going for moto wins or race wins this season with how stacked the field is currently. Maybe if some guys get hurt and kind of get depleted and he hangs in there, his wrist heals up towards the end of the season, he could sneak in a win. We know RJ is incredibly fast. Has fought for the outdoor title and the Supercross title for several years now in the 250 class with the top guys. So I could be really interested to see what RJ does there. Last guy, a name that did not do too well in Supercross. He really underperformed, but we know the last couple of years he kind of came in and kind of impressed outdoors with where some of his finishes were. Nothing too flashy, but just more than we expected. And that would be Colt Nichols. I look to see Colt bounce back. We've seen a lot of social media hype this week. He's been at the Stopwatch Nationals doing well, riding fast, looks good. So I'd like to see Colt mix it up into that top 10. That's really the list of guys I've got here. We've got a couple more guys that are out for the current time. Maybe could come in. We know Dylan Ferrandis could be a guy. Of course, he's hurt with that broken leg. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out. Ken Roxon has said maybe later in the year, once his ankle heals up, he could come in for some outdoors. We've seen him do that in the past and kind of mix it up pretty quickly. We know Kenny is just so fast and so good outdoors. 2 other guys I look to see that are currently not racing outdoors, but I think under the correct circumstances could come back. That would be Christian Craig and Shane McElrath. Craig, we just know he's a much better outdoor rider on the 450. We've seen this throughout his career. He's finished on the podium in the 450 class. I think that would be really interested to see him out there. And with the possibility of Webb maybe dropping out or, who knows what happens with Webb here, I think Christian Craig could flirt with a ride there. And Shane McElrath, a guy who I don't believe is set to race outdoors at all because of the WSX series, where I believe he's the defending 250 champion. I think if Shane were to come in under whatever circumstances, I think he finished the year on such a high in Supercross that he could kind of mix things up. I think that could be an underrated story to look for if he was able to come back. Though we're not sure how serious that possibility is. Going through all that, with all that said, if I had to pick a champion, it's got to be between Jet, Chase, and Eli. That seems obvious. Again, Prado would be one of the guys, in my opinion, that is going to stamp as winning a race, but I just don't see him at the end of the year in the title hunt, with being his first year in the motocross class. Obviously, going forward in his career, he's going to be one of those guys that we look at as champion. But this year, I don't quite see it. As long as everyone stays healthy, of course. Cross our fingers it never happens, but we would love to see, really an all-out battle. And between Jet, Chase, and Eli, truthfully, in my heart, I believe Jet is the best rider of these guys at the current moment. If I had to say, like, Jet was out, something happened to Jet, he DNFs, has a weird, inexplicable finish, then I would go to Chase Sexton just because of how hot he's been lately, how good he's been riding. He's just been on. Eli, we know, is going to come back with a vengeance. But I think Chase has a lot to prove to not only himself, but to everyone watching, all of his fans. I think Chase Sexton would be next up on that list. I think Jet and Chase are going to have a lot for each other this season. But I do think Jet ultimately comes out on top. Third place, I do have Eli Tomac, but I do think Eli, under the correct circumstances, is going to fight for this title. I don't think he'll be as close to the championship as Jet and Chase, but I think he will be a strong third place. If anything, I think these guys can stay within a moto of each other. As far as the point standings go, I think that would really be incredible. to see this thing go down to the last moto, we could not ask for more if that were to happen. But again, I do think Jet Lawrence will finish out with this championship. If everybody stays healthy and we have, the true championship that we've been waiting for between these guys. So with all that said, that's what we've got for the 450 class. Like I said earlier, I'll do a 250 preview out later this week. Getting us prepped for next Saturday. So that's all I've got. If you want to give us a follow on Twitter, X, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, as normal, at Not Another Moto Pod. Thanks for listening.